Now, one of Russia's best-known human rights campaigners, Oleg Orlov, has been jailed for 2.5 years by a court in Moscow. Mr. Orlov, who is 70, was found guilty of repeatedly discrediting the Russian army. He was initially fined at a trial last year, but prosecutors demanded a stiffer penalty. Mr. Orlov played a leading role in the Nobel Prize-winning group Memorial, which was shut down by the Russian authorities. 2 years ago, he complained in a newspaper article that President Vladimir Putin had led the country into fascism. Joining us on the line now is our Russia editor, Steve Rosenberg. Steve, tell us more about Mr. Orlov and what's happened to him.
Here in Moscow, the mood's quite sombre, I have to say. Some of Mr. Orlov's supporters are still milling about. A short while ago, he was found guilty of repeatedly discrediting the Russian armed forces through some of his public criticisms of the war in Ukraine. He was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. At that moment, court officials handcuffed him, put him into the cage that is the dock in that room, and then he was led out down the corridor by police. And as you mentioned, it was only last year that he was on trial, the same charges. He was convicted then, but a slightly different result. He was fined and he walked free. But prosecutors had complained. They thought that was too lenient, and a retrial was ordered, which has had this result. He's now going to prison.
Tell us a bit more about him and his campaigning, and how well known is he in Russia?
He's very well known. He is a veteran human rights campaigner. He's 70 years old. He was for many years connected with Memorial, the well-known, the famous human rights organization here in Russia. And he's been an outspoken critic, both of the authorities and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Yesterday in court, he gave a closing statement, and he said he regretted nothing. He didn't regret what he'd written, what he'd said, and he said that Russia was falling deeper and deeper into darkness. He painted a very bleak picture of what was happening here and the crackdown on dissent. He knew, I think, that this retrial would end with him going to prison. The question was the length of the prison sentence. Prosecutors had demanded yesterday 2 years and 11 months. When the judge announced the sentence today, it was 2 years and 6 months.
OK, Steve Rosenberg, thank you for updating us from Moscow.